Our first storyteller, Carmi Frankovich, will tell you how her involvement in personal development programs prepared her to embrace and then powerfully share her own coming out story at age 45. Carmi has been committed to understanding, advocating, supporting, and educating herself and others regarding those topics relating to the LGBTQ community. Carmi, my great friend, please welcome. Don't forget to unmute yourself.
Thank you, my dear friend Tony. It's always a pleasure collaborating with you. Hi, everyone. I am so thrilled to see all of you. Thank you for being here. I'm also very pleased and grateful that you have an interest in hearing my story and what I have to share. My story today is not so much about my coming out experience. Rather, it's about my development and transformation via my participation in various programs and counseling, which empowered me in many areas of my life, including being a thriving survivor with a fluid sexual identity. So begins my story. When I was 28 years old, my friend Lalo urged me to do a personal transformation weekend that he had just completed and which had profoundly impacted his life. It was called The Experience, and one of its founders was the well-known LGBTQ activist Rob Eichberg, who also is one of the founders of the National Coming Out Day. The Experience weekend was really created for the LGBT community, but Lalo assured me there would be a few other straight people who would also be participating. The weekend focused not just on sexual identity or coming out, but on all kinds of coming out experiences, in addition to living more powerfully, being fully expressed, connecting deeply with ourselves and others, and so on. Friends and family agreed to care for my 4-year-old son. I was a single parent at the time while I was in the weekend seminar. So I took the leap of faith and registered for the experience. The direction of my life changed dramatically that weekend. I learned so much about myself, not just by getting coached by the fabulous experience facilitator, Honey Ward, but by listening to the stories of all the participants and gaining insight into my own experiences and transformation. I had a bunch of aha moments and big takeaways from that weekend, and I'm just going to share a couple of them with you. First, and the most importantly, I had a healed and restored relationship with the woman who I love more than anybody else in the world, and that's my mom. 2, just prior to doing my experience weekend, I had located the man who had sexually abused me when I was 6 years old. I had already arranged an out-of-state visit to confront him and do battle. The experienced facilitator gave me coaching in front of the room about creating the intention for healing and understanding, forgiveness and compassion. That conversation with the man who had sexually abused me was incredibly powerful and healing, and I'm so grateful to have done the experience seminar prior to my visit with him. Third takeaway. Last week, I was able to unpack my workbook from my experience weekend. At the top of one of the pages, the workbook instructed me to, quote, list any other specific actions you intend to take or communications you intend to make as a result of participating in the experience. And it was so interesting to read my handwriting from all those years ago. I wrote, my vision is to become involved in HIV/AIDS work in Mexico. I need a few more years of experience, will pay off my debts, and I'm already networking with people who can assist me in realizing this vision, end of quote. Well, I'm happy to report that I was able to accomplish that vision and paid off my debt after returning from living in Mexico for about a year, where I was able to serve on one of the HIV/AIDS task forces in the state of Zacatecas. 4, during the experience seminar, I examined whether or not I was or could be gay or bisexual. I came to the conclusion that I was straight, but that it would be totally fine if someday that changed. I also took a vow at the end of the weekend. I don't recall the exact wording, but I vowed to do all I could to support the vision of the experience. So back in 1994, the vision of the experience was the following. By the year 2000, it will be absolutely okay to be lesbian or gay, and diversity will be valued and celebrated. So that was the vow that I took. I had no idea how making that pledge would be the catalyst for my participation in countless trainings, rallies, groups, protests, counter protests, PFLAG meetings, workshops, panel discussions, my jobs, classes, etc., all focused on learning about, educating, and encouraging others about LGBTQ stuff. I am very passionate about supporting the LGBT community, which has been fueled by having listened to literally thousands of people's stories, starting back to when I was in college, which was a long time ago. There have been so many PFLAG meetings, self help groups, classes, conferences, clients, friends, acquaintances, and sometimes complete strangers who have chosen to be vulnerable and share their stories with me. It is an inspiration and a privilege to witness their stories and share one of mine with all of you today. I cannot relate to what it's like to grow up as an LGBTQ person and all that that entails, but I can relate to the shame part that many LGBTQ folks experience, and that I also have worked hard to overcome due to my sexual abuse experiences. We resist talking about those things that make us feel yucky. And not only did I not talk about the sexual abuse, I completely blocked it from my memory for many, many years. It was scary when I first started sharing about the abuse, but I quickly experienced some relief, especially when others shared their stories of abuse with me. Embracing our vulnerabilities and talking about our shame has been researched by Brene Brown and many others. In her book, Brene Brown's book called Daring Greatly, Brene writes, shame hates having words wrapped around it. Shame derives its power from being unspeakable. Brene adds that the research indicates when people shared their stories and experiences, their physical health improved, the doctor visits decreased, and they showed significant decreases in their stress hormones. We all need to tell our stories and listen to the stories of others. Our lives depend on it. During this time of COVID-19, there are many virtual venues and opportunities for us to share our stories with each other. Outwards Journey is one opportunity. I know that you'll be hearing later today about a virtual support group that's going to be starting up for LGBTQ people. I believe I heard that Charlotte McIntosh from, what's it called? Hold on. Gender Explorers is possibly going to be starting a walking group for trans and ally folk. So there's so many ways to share your stories. Also support groups, individual counseling, 12-step meetings, PFLAG, Youth Outlook, church and other spiritual groups, couples retreats and workshops, and of course, personal transformation seminars. Unfortunately, the personal transformation weekend called The Experience is no longer in existence. I do not know if there are other similar type programs that have gone virtual that are specifically designed for LGBTQ people and allies. I do know that the co-founders of The Experience were greatly influenced by another personal transformation program called EST, which is now called Landmark Worldwide. I signed up to do the Landmark Forum in 2001 because a friend of mine shared about her extraordinary weekend and wanted more of what I had gotten out of doing the experience. That Landmark Forum weekend blew my socks off, and I have become a personal growth and transformation enthusiast ever since. My biggest accomplishments are not monetary, but are more important things like repaired relationships, improved self-confidence, compassionate listening and communication, self-love, self-acceptance, and other types of breakthroughs that have been supported by my participation in personal development and transformation programs like Landmark, PSI, the Right Foundation, Tantra Nova, and of course, the experience. I have gained much in these personal growth workshops by listening to others share their challenges and breakthroughs, and by hearing world class facilitators powerfully coach folks so that everyone in the room can apply those distinctions to our own lives. Okay, back to my personal story. So, flash forward to the year 2012, and I was in another landmark weekend course. The person that you sit next to in a course is who you do the paired exercises with. And the woman I did my exercises with that day identified herself as a lesbian. And then after we did the exercises, we ate our lunch together. At some point during lunch, I felt this old but familiar sensation in my stomach, like butterflies when you're interested in somebody romantically. This was very confusing to me because I had never felt that sensation before for a woman. I remember being surprised, anxious, excited, curious. I was pleasantly surprised when I went back to the landmark course the next day and those feelings were still there and getting stronger. That was the first time I fell in love with a woman. And even though the relationship only lasted about 6 weeks, it had an incredible impact on my life and on my sexual self identity. To this day, I do not identify as a lesbian. My primary romantic and sexual attraction is towards men, but that did not stop me from falling in love with another woman. And this time, the relationship lasted for a whopping 6 months. Coming out to friends, family, colleagues, etc., was mostly pretty easy. I had a deep rooted belief that love is love. And even if others did not agree, I knew that my love and intentions were honorable. My transformation work with experience and landmark well prepared me to be with people in any situation, including being judged or rejected. There were some people close to me who lovingly told me they believed I was going down the wrong path, which was difficult to hear. Even one of my dearest friends was praying for me because she was afraid I wasn't going to be with her in heaven and added me to the prayer chain at church. Um, but I knew she did it with loving intentions. Thankfully, due to my personal development training, I was able to powerfully listen and validate what was true for them. And validate doesn't mean that I believe, it's just that was valid for them. And I was still lovingly and confidently sharing what was true for me. It was also a bit challenging trying to explain that even though I was in a romantic relationship with a woman, I did not identify as gay. My college age son was supportive and not surprised. He basically said whatever worked for me was fine by him when I told him I was dating a woman. My son also taught me the word heteroflexible, which is still my preferred way of describing my sexual orientation. My parents love me and they want me to be happy. In the beginning, they asked questions about, you know, how could this be? They were having a hard time wrapping their heads around the fact that their daughter, who does not identify as gay, was in love with a woman. My father even rode in the P flag van in the Aurora Pride Parade, wearing a t shirt that had a Christian pro LGBTQ verse on it and waved his rainbow flag proudly. Not too long ago, I jokingly asked my dad if he would still love and support me if I identified as straight. He hugged me and said, he hugged me hard and said he would love me no matter the gender of my partner. We all have so many stories to share, some happy, some sad, some entail great suffering, or they're about having done some things that we're not proud of. And we often believe that we're the only ones who are dealing with this specific secret or burden. Oh, the relief when we discover there are others who have had similar thoughts, feelings, and experiences. There are others who will still love and care about us, even when they know those things about us. Again, I encourage each one of you, if you are not already doing so, to pursue participating in a virtual support group, workshop, seminar, retreat, or other venue in which you will have the opportunity to choose courage and be vulnerable. I promise this is the last Brene Brown quote for the day, but I'm going to read it to you twice. Brene writes, "To love ourselves and support each other in the process of becoming real is perhaps the greatest single act of daring greatly." One more time. to love ourselves and support each other in the process of becoming real is perhaps the greatest single act of daring greatly. In other words, we need to be a witness for each other. So, in closing, thank you for being a witness to my story, my vulnerability, and supporting me in the process of becoming real. Thank you.